What brings you three to the Master Realm? We bring a warning. All realms are collapsing, and Obscitans Abyssus is building an army.
We know this already. You still haven't answered why you're here.
You know? Innocent people. Other members of the Order of Light. Those who have fought with you are gone. Either dead or disappeared as everything fell to dust before vanishing from existence. It is unimportant. All that matters is the preservation of the Master Realm. Obscitans Abyssus cannot claim the throne.
Unimportant? We do not understand. Our purpose is to preserve balance and fight chaos. It seems a little chaotic of yourselves to allow entire worlds to vanish.
The other worlds were a mistake. We thought we could imprison Obscitans Abyssus away from the Master Realm since we could not close the cracks in the void. All it did was embolden them to create more chaos.
We do not like what we hear. We fight for good and for the balance of life. The lives of other beings are too chaotic. We feel like they are not a part of the plan. But what is the plan to stop the shadows? We've seen their army. It's already large and powerful. They will soon strike.
This is why we brought over the Changelings and the Regis of Niev, the now second and third members of the Order of Light.
But we are the Travelers. How did the Regis usurp us in the Order?
You shouldn't have shown doubt in the Elder's plan. We do not feel like you have the same goals, and therefore you are demoted. This is news to us.
Enough! Get out of our sight! Show us you belong by destroying our enemies.
As you wish. Know that we do not doubt you. We simply feel like there are questions that should be answered so we can truly understand your plan. What do you think of these travelers?
Any Order of Light members who question our authority should be killed.
Agreed. Make it happen. We cannot have any more distractions as we prepare to have sole power of the Master Realm.
Welcome to the Quest for the Green Ball, War Within. We are nearing the end of the first half of the regular season, which is really crazy how fast it's going. A lot of weeks are still to come, though, and really only one of us seems guaranteed a playoff spot, barring a historic collapse. The rest of us are still battling and trying to avoid inconsistency, with this past week and this upcoming week as huge turning points, or tipping points, depending on how you look at it, for squads as we continue our divisional play. And the Power Division had one of the big-time divisional matchups in our last... As remember, the Titans took on the Stellar Bitches at the Temple of the Star. The Stellar Bitches pull off a gigantic 127.04 to 106.74 win here, with her running back stepping up in a big way. Bijan Robinson went off for 238 yards and a 50-plus yard touchdown on Monday night. Cam Scadaboo added 110 yards and 3 touchdowns last Thursday. Dak Prescott also had 3 touchdowns, and Cam Dicker had 5 field goals and 2 extra points for a big-time 16 points out of the kicker spot. Even player to watch, A.J. Brown did okay, finishing with 80 yards. On the other side, Mika Buko was primed for a big game until he ended up injured, finishing with just 24 yards And this was a big blow to Remember the Titans, just like we talked about in our Players to Watch previews last week. Drake May did step up with 3 touchdowns, and George Pickens and Jackson Smith and Jigba each had over 160 yards and a score to continue their hot streaks. Even Bam Knight scored a touchdown, but in the end, the Robinson and Scadaboo combo was too tough to overcome. The Stellar Bitches moved to 3-3 overall. Remember the Titans falls to 2-4. In the other power division matchup, Golden Ticket remains undefeated after a 121.48 to 74.46 beatdown over Low-Key Lebowski Thor. Rico Dowdle did it again, 249 yards and a touchdown. He's proving to be a huge midseason waiver pickup. Drake London dropped 158 yards and a touchdown, proving to be a big trade pickup already. Daniel Jones added 2 scores, and Jamar Chase and Zach Ertz also reached the end zone. Bryce Young led Lebowski Thor with 3 touchdowns, and Trey McBride and Jamison Williams also reached the end zone. But there wasn't much else to speak of. Lebowski Thor falls to 1-5 overall, and just like last season, will need a strong second half of the season to make a run. The Stars Are Right squad blasted the Fighting Mooses 118.16 to 73.22 in the Dream Division. Jaden Daniels had 3 touchdowns as he finally came to life. And DeAndre Swift also came to life, adding 175 yards and a 50-plus yard score on Monday night to pad the final tally. Devon Achane collected 2 touchdowns on Sunday, and the Steelers' defense added 6 sacks. Jalen Hurts had 2 scores to lead the Fighting Mooses, and the Broncos' defense did have 9 sacks, but it was a tough one overall. The Stars Are Right are now 4-2. The Fighting Mooses fall to 1-5. The Overcomers' string of close, low-scoring wins came to an end in an 83.34 to 80.4 loss to Green Acres. Eddie Pinero's 4 field goals, including 2 50-plus yarders, ended up being the difference. Baker Mayfield did have 2 touchdowns himself. Kyron Williams also scored. On the other side, Josh Allen had another down game with under 20 points. He did have 2 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, and Jake Ferguson all scored for the Overcomers as well. But there just wasn't enough yards overall. Both teams are now 3-3. The Clash at Demonhead picked up a huge win over first place Thorlacher in the Shadow Division, 97.42 to 95.08. Trevor Lawrence scored twice, and Christian McCaffrey, DK Metcalf, and Rashad White also scored. James Cook added 87 yards on Monday night to complete the victory. Wasn't a great performance, but she got what she needed. Thorlacher had 3 touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes, and others by Austin Janty and Tyler Warren. But there just wasn't enough production elsewhere. Thorlacher falls out of first, actually, with this loss, dropping to 4-2. The Clash at Demonhead is now 3-3. Lastly, Treat 'em and Eat 'em moved back into first in the Shadow Division by points tiebreaker with a 95.22 to 54.1 massacre of defending champion Pounders. Jonathan Taylor had over 100 yards and a score. Jared Goff added 2 touchdowns, and the Raiders' defense went off for 6 sacks, a pick, and 2 fumble recoveries. Josh Jacobs had 2 scores and 27 points for Pounders. The rest of the team combined for just 27.1 points. That is not going to get it done. Injuries really hurting them at this point. CeeDee Lamb, Chuba Hubbard, and Terry McLaurin were all out again. Pounders falls to 2-4. Treat 'em and Eat 'em, 4-2. The divisions had some shake-up based on these results, as we've said. The Stars Are Right squad is a game up on both the Overcomers and Green Acres with a large points lead over both. The 2-0 divisional record is also an advantage. Treat 'em and Eat 'em are in first in the Shadow Division by points tiebreaker, 44 points ahead of Thorlacher. The Clash at Demonhead is just a game back of both record-wise. And Golden Ticket might be running away with the Power Division with a 3-game lead over the Stellar Bitches and a huge points lead that is #1 in the league right now. Remember, the Titans is in 3rd place right now, but does have a significant points advantage over the Stellar Bitches with another match against them later this season. Once again, the Power Division will be on full display in Week 7 with another insane matchup with history on the line in the next Golden Ticket is not only trying to build a commanding 4-game lead in the division, but they are just 1 win away from tying Green Acres for the best start in league history. The Stellar Bitches are looking to keep pace in the division, the playoff race, and to end the first half of the season above 500, which does tend to bode well for teams' chances at making the playoffs. Plus, they can spoil the history celebrations of Golden Ticket here. This one will be taking place in the bubbling lake of despair. So let's find out how the journey in the Master Realm is going.
What is this place?
This is the beginning of the Elder Territory, what we call the bubbling lake of despair. It is a place where the non-overseers who oppose the Elders are imprisoned for all eternity. Do not look into the shiny boiling waters, for it may steal your soul as well.
This is different from the graveyard? While it is horrible, why not put the overseers here too?
The graveyard is a curse. This is a prison of souls for anyone who disobeys the Elders, including other Order of Light members.
And I think we just realized the one hurdle with fully trusting you, Kian. I mean, how can we trust the Overseers are also not trying to do everything in their power to win this war?
Yes, I understand this. But we are merely reaching the halfway point in our journey to the Temple of the Eye. I have faith that by the time we reach the courtyard, you will believe in me.
More to show us?
The Elder Territory we will be passing through will be more dangerous as the scavengers will not leave us alone for long. And other Elder magic will begin to come into play. They know we are approaching, but I am helping to hide us enough to give us the time we need to act and to hide when the time comes. The Elders might also lead us into a trap, knowing we need to reach the temple. I expect the courtyard to be a war zone to get through. But no one ever said this journey would be easy or successful.
You are giving us a lot of confidence, Kian.
Do not worry. It could be worse. You could be boiling in this lake and stuck in a prison without the knowledge of our next big matchup, as the Stellar Bitches and Golden Ticket play a huge divisional game, and both teams' second featured match of the week. Will Golden Ticket continue to stay at the top of the league standings and win their second game of the week? Can the Stellar Bitches stay in a divisional race and show that they belong in the overall playoff picture before the second half of the season begins?
Just like they all have to battle the war of attrition and the endless ups and downs that come with a fantasy football season, we also need to persevere and continue on regardless of troubles to save the universe and to help them all get back home.
True, but I would still like to have their jobs, mostly oblivious to the dangers around them and just worrying about their lineups and matchups each week.
You want to go back into the dreams with them, don't you, Franklin?
Of course I do. The bubbling lake of despair is not the greatest thing to see. All the poor souls who thought they were doing good only to be betrayed by the Elders. As far as I'm concerned, they are the same as Obscitans Abyssus.
Keep that in mind, because this lake is probably the nicest thing we will see moving forward.
Golden Ticket needs to find a kicker replacement here, as the computers do not like the chances of this team remaining undefeated at the moment. The Stellar Bitches have a 67% chance to win. A kicker, though, most likely brings those odds down to 54%, making this more of a toss-up. Dak Prescott has been on fire, and since the Cowboys' defense cannot stop anyone, he's in a lot of shootouts. So Prescott is heavily favored over Daniel Jones here. Bijan Robinson is a stud at running back, and he's also hitting his stride. Trade pickup J.K. Dobbins will need to step up for Golden Ticket to help here and maybe avoid some of that big advantage with Bijan. Golden Ticket will hope Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams cook in tougher matchups, though Adams, he might be at the top of the list for Matthew Stafford's targets if Puka Nacua is actually out. He's missed practice so far. Roman Dunze has a good matchup for the Stellar Bitches, but A.J. Brown is a tough matchup coupled with his pedestrian offensive numbers this season. Zach Ertz or Brock Bowers, if he gets healthy, are clear advantages for Golden Ticket at tight end. Doesn't matter who plays. And Drake London looks to be a big-time trade pickup after his performance last week. Golden Ticket wants a repeat of his performance so he gets more points than Elvin Kamara on the other side in the flex. And at the moment, both defenses are really not expected to score a lot of points here, barring turnovers or touchdowns. And that brings me to the two players I'm watching. For Golden Ticket, I turn to running back Rico Dowdle, who's been a waiver wire pickup dream for Golden Ticket after Bucky Irving went down with an injury. Dowdle, who himself is an injury replacement for Chuba Hubbard, has gone insane the past 2 weeks. He did have good matchups. He had over 200 total yards against Miami and Dallas, including over 200 rushing yards against Miami. He has had touchdowns in both games too. Dowdle, of course, did have over 1,300 total yards for the Cowboys last season after being a backup for his first 3 years of his career. He never has had more than 5 touchdowns in a season. He has 3 already in 2025, so he's on pace to maybe best that. His yards per rush have been insane the past 2 weeks. 9 against Miami, 6.1 against Dallas. He also has had 14 yards per reception last week, showing he can make big plays. However, Chuba Hubbard did return to practice and may be active for the next game. So that makes Dowdle a huge question mark. Does he retain the starting role because of the last 2 performances? Does this become more of a running back by committee with Dowdle losing valuable touches? Can both Hubbard and Dowdle achieve greatness together like a 1-2 punch that some teams have thrown out there? These are the answers Golden Ticket would love to know, but some that he will need to guess for the time being. Hubbard wasn't exactly lighting up the stat sheet before his injury. He didn't crack 100 yards in any of his first 3 games and scored just twice. His yards per carry average was 4.1. The Jets are not as bad against the run as the Dolphins and Cowboys, but they're tied for 17th, so they're not great. They did allow James Cook to collect 132 yards and 2 scores in Week 2, and Devon Achane to have 99 yards and a touchdown in Week 4. Javonte Williams went wild for 135 yards and a score in Week 5. So clearly good backs do tend to go off against the Jets, though they did hold Bucky Irving to just 66 yards in Week 3 and J.K. Dobbins to just 40 yards last week. If Dowdle continues to get high-value touches or make big plays with the touches he does get, then he should still put up solid numbers for Golden Ticket. They just might not be the 30-point type numbers he's essentially seen the last 2 weeks. But if Hubbard steals touchdowns and touches, really, Dowdle could be a big bust and end up costing Golden Ticket a dream of an undefeated season. On the other side, the Stellar Bitches boast one of the top rookie running backs this season in Cam Scadaboo. Scadaboo started slow as he was worked into the Giants' offense, but he's getting double-digit carries, really double-digit touches, because this also includes passing opportunities in the last several weeks. He had 98 yards and 3 touchdowns for his best game so far, and that was all on the ground last week. The week before, he had over 100 total yards on 21 touches. In Week 4, 90 yards on 27 touches. That volume, coupled with his red zone opportunities, makes Scadaboo very valuable in fantasy football. Even with Tyrone Tracy back from injury, while the touches might be closer to the 20 range than 30, Scadaboo figures to continue to get touches with Jackson Dart under center and the use of the option play. The problem is that Scadaboo takes on the Denver defense this week. That is not an easy task. The Broncos ranked 7th against running backs, allowing just 1 touchdown on the ground to a Marion Hampton in Week 3. They did allow Jonathan Taylor to collect 165 yards and 25 carries in Week 2, but then they held Saquon Barkley to just 30 yards on 6 carries in Week 5. In fact, besides Taylor, only Hampton has had at least 70 rushing yards against this defense in a game. The Broncos have allowed some points to running backs in the passing game, however. Taylor had 58 yards and a score in Week 2. Hampton added 59 yards through the air in Week 3. Barkley had 58 yards and a touchdown in the passing game in Week 5. So Scadaboo can contribute there if needed, seeing as how he has had targets and catches. If the rookie continues to get those touches, especially those high-value ones in the red zone, converting them into touchdowns like last week, then of course the Stellar Bitches could be on their way to an upset. But if Denver holds Scadaboo in check, that could be enough to allow Golden Ticket a chance to pull away in the end. And this is a very interesting and important matchup. Golden Ticket wants to essentially go on cruise control for the rest of the season. And yes, they can make league history too. The Stellar Bitches can find themselves right back in a divisional race with a window, just because these teams will play each other again. Of course, we have other big-time matchups coming up with multiple first-place battles. 2 and 4, remember the Titans, and 1 and 5, Loki, Lebowski, Thor are the other power division matchup. And this is big for both teams to avoid being in panic mode. Remember, the Titans has a 74.5% chance to win right now. Drake May has been on fire, so Lebowski Thor needs to choose the right quarterback. Jamar Gibbs versus Crenshaw and Judkins, and Jackson Smith and Jigba versus Jamison Williams will also be huge. George Pickens will be interesting to watch with CeeDee Lamb returning from injury, and Keenan Allen is interesting for Lebowski Thor if Quentin Johnston misses another game. 3 and 3 Green Acres has an outside chance to take over first place in the Dream Division, taking on 1 and 5 the Fighting Mooses. Green Acres has a 59% chance to win here. Baker Mayfield versus Jalen Hurts is always big for these two squads. Kenneth Walker versus Kyron Williams is big for the Fighting Mooses. Justin Jefferson and Rashee Rice versus Chris Olave and Nico Collins is big for Green Acres. 3 and 3 the Overcomers takes on my 4 and 2 the Stars Are Right team with a shot to take over first place if they get a win and Green Acres loses. The Stars Are Right have a 53% chance to win right now, and this is due to the uncertainty around Puka Nacua. Jaden Daniels versus Joe Flacco, Devon Achane versus Saquon Barkley, and the Steelers versus Packers defenses loom large. Jalen Waddle versus Xavier Worthy is also an area to watch. The clash at Demon Head will look to make the Shadow Division race interesting, but defending champion Pounders will be looking to avoid a 2 and 5 start and will be pulling out all the stops to do so. The computers say this is a 50-50 toss-up right now. Josh Jacobs versus Christian McCaffrey is certainly huge. Rashad White versus Javonte Williams should also be big. CeeDee Lamb versus DK Metcalf is one area I'm going to watch with Lamb returning from injury, as is the Lions versus Eagles defense battle, especially with the Lions struggling last week. Lastly, we get another big-time matchup with first place on the line. 2 4 and 2 teams in the Shadow Division. Thorlacker taking on Treatum and Eatum. And Treatum and Eatum has a 66.3% chance to win. Jared Goff versus Patrick Mahomes is certainly a big one. Mahomes has been lighting it up the past few weeks. Jonathan Taylor versus Ashton Genty, and the Sun God versus Cortland Sutton also look to be key spots. T. Higgins versus Rashid Shaheed is sneaky in the flex. We'll see who wins that battle. This should be an eventful close to the first half of the regular season, and at the moment, just one game separates 7 teams in the standings, so there's a lot of jumbling still to happen. We certainly have a long way to go before teams really start thinking playoffs, except for maybe Golden Ticket, who's thinking about history and the playoffs this week. And that's the show for the week. Hope you enjoyed it. Join us again next time as we go back out of our divisions and start to trek through Elder territory in the Master Realm. You know, crazy stuff's about to happen there. Until next time, salut, and check out the updated power rankings before you go.